We have the Saturday box office numbers for Avengers Endgame and the official Sunday projections for Avengers Endgame. And with both of those, Endgame is now either the largest film ever or it will very soon be the largest film ever. As I've been saying in many of these Avengers Endgame videos, there are two figures floating around for how much money Avatar earned. TheNumbers.com has a number smaller than Box Office Mojo. Right now, according to TheNumbers.com, the Avengers Endgame film has earned $4.4 million more than Avatar, and it is now the biggest film ever. According to Box Office Mojo, it only needs $7.1 million more to become the biggest film ever. And we can see the same information here from both of their web pages. At the top, we have the top 10 according to Box Office Mojo. At the bottom, we have the top 10 according to TheNumbers.com. We have Avatar as still the number one film according to Box Office Mojo, $2.788 billion. And Avengers Endgame only $7 million behind that, number two. And in the bottom section here from TheNumbers.com, we have Avengers Endgame as the biggest film of all time with the exact same total that Box Office Mojo has, $2.78 billion. But they've got Avatar as the second biggest film here with only $2.776 billion. So there is about an $11.5 million difference between the international figures or the foreign figures for Avatar. So that's where we are now. We're in this little grey area where maybe Endgame's the biggest ever, maybe it isn't, but it only has $7.1 million to go to beat Box Office Mojo, and I think that will happen. So last week and before that, I thought it was still going to struggle to get to the Box Office Mojo figure, but I did think that it would beat the Numbers.com total. I didn't think it would beat the Numbers.com total this quickly. I didn't think this weekend it would actually become number one according to them, and basically, the amount of money that it's earned in the last week internationally is what makes me believe that it will beat the Box Office Mojo figure. It will be the biggest film of all time. It probably won't happen in 1 week's time, but maybe 2 weeks. 2 weeks' time, it may be the biggest film ever. Perhaps more than that, but again, I don't think it'll happen in just 1 week. I don't think it'll get $7.1 million in the upcoming week, but it'll get $7.1 million, I believe, in the next 2 weeks. So let's take a look at some of the numbers, see why I think it'll get another $7.1 million or more than that. To begin with here, we'll look at a chart. Here are the box office totals for the US domestic market for Endgame and Infinity War from around about 7 weeks ago. And that's a point in time in which they started earning the same kind of money. Now, before that, Endgame far out-earned Infinity War, but about 7 weeks ago, you can see here in the chart, they actually were earning the same amount of money for around about a week. So both lines are over the top of each other for a week, and then after that, Infinity War started out-earning Endgame every day, and Endgame was only getting about 75% of the money that Infinity War was earning. But a little bit over 2 weeks ago, on the Friday, when Endgame launched its special edition or extra edition or new release, whatever it's being called, you can see clearly where that is on the chart, where the blue line just jumps straight up. And so it was looking like Infinity War was going to earn more money at this point in time than Endgame quite easily. Now they've actually earned around about the same amount of money. Endgame has earned a lot of extra money due to this extra release. So it has definitely worked from the point of view of earning millions of dollars more. So there'll be plenty of executives over at the MCU, over at Marvel, inside Disney, that'll be getting some extra bonuses. A lot of them will be getting a percentage of the profits. So this is all extra money in their pockets. They'll be all loving that. But also, it looks like it is going to beat Avatar, which I suspect was the real reason for doing this. But nonetheless, just looking at the chart, you can see what a drastic change actually happened in the US domestic market. So here are the actual raw numbers for Endgame on the left and Infinity War on the right, and this starts from the week before the re-release. So day 64, that's where the re-release happened, but if we look at the 4 figures before that are highlighted in the red, that's the sort of weekday figures, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday figures. Day 60, we got $270,000 for Endgame, $350,000 for Infinity War. And then as we look at the other 3 days there, it's about the same again. It's around about a 75% of the money from the one on the left to the one on the right. Then it got re-released on day 64, and you can see the massive increase it had. It went from $299,000 to $1.8 million. And we look across to the right-hand side, Infinity War only got $400,000 at that point in time. And from there on out, Endgame has out-earned Infinity War, but it's actually kept a lot of the money. And so if you look down to the bottom 3 rows now, this is the Friday, the Saturday, and the Sunday that's been officially projected out. So the Sunday hasn't actually finished yet in the US domestic market, but they have their figures there ready for it. They always do that. we can see that it got $471 million, $471,000 on day 77, compared to only $179,000 from Infinity War, and then 745 on the Saturday compared to 256, and then 476 compared to 176. So it's earning around about 3 times the money right now that Infinity War is earning, and it's kept something like that for quite a while. It hasn't actually bled money away like most films do when they do a re-release. Now, I suspect that's because Spider-Man is helping it. It's impossible to know, but the combination of the re-release and Spider-Man, I believe, is what's led to all of his extra money. But nonetheless, Infinity War earned a total of $678.8 million, and at this point in time, on day 77, it has $676 million, or it got another $2.8 million from here on out. So it looks like Endgame might get 3 times that. So that's a bit under $9 million. But at the very least, it's going to earn more than what Infinity War earned. So if Infinity War got another $2.8 million from here to the end of its run, Endgame's going to get more than $2.8 million in the US domestic market easily. Okay, if you just look at these figures here. So more than 2.8, probably closer to 9, let's say $7 or $8 million. Well, it needs $7.1 million to beat the Box Office Mojo total. So that might just be it there. It might be able to beat it just with the US domestic market alone. So if you look at the international numbers now to see how much it's going to earn from here on out in the foreign market, here we have the weekly earnings for Endgame from Sunday to Sunday. So the first figure we have there, the $866 million, that's what it had internationally at the end of the first Sunday. That wasn't a full week, but that was what it was sitting at the first Sunday. And then it earned an additional $702 million to the next Sunday, which was a 18.9% drop. Then earned $193 million and so on, and it dropped down, roughly 50% down after the second week or the third week there. And then if we look at the fourth bottom row, that's the week before the re-release. So the $3.1 million, that's how much money it earned in the foreign market before it got re-released. It just had a 46% drop from the week before, and it looked like it would probably get another 50% drop, but what happened was it earned $4.9 million after the re-release. It got a huge 58% increase. Nowhere near as big an increase as what happened in the US market, but this is not including China. China didn't relaunch it, so massive amount of extra money for it to earn on a percentage basis without having China involved. And then what happened last week was it only dropped 6.1%, which I thought it would have halved at the very least because it's just had a little abnormal bump due to re-release, and then it'll have people stop going to the movies. But no, the opposite happened. It actually basically kept the same amount of money. And then what's now been reported is it's just earned $5 million internationally in this week up to this Sunday right now, which is actually an 8.7% increase from the week before, which is just crazy that a film would actually earn more money in 1 week compared to the week beforehand. So at this stage, it looks like it could get another $5 million next week. I don't think that'll happen, but last week I said I don't think it'll get $4.6 million. I thought it would get about 2.3. I thought it would half the money from the week before. So I still think the same thing here. I think it'll probably get half of this $5 million next week, but at this rate, it looks like it'll keep it. And again, it needs $7.1 million to beat the Box Office Mojo total. I already think it could probably do that just in the US market alone. But right now, minimum, I think it's going to earn an extra $5 million in the rest of its international run. It could get as much as $20 million extra. I still think that $20 million more is way more than it'll earn, but I've kind of been saying that for 2 weeks now. The figure I'm saying will be more than it'll earn, and it's basically on track to get a massive extra amount of money. Now, in the scheme of things, another $5-10 million isn't that much, but we're not talking about increasing this $2.7 billion that much. Okay, we need a very small increase to beat the Box Office Mojo figure. I think it'll happen. Again, I don't think it'll happen at the end of next week. I don't think it'll hit $7.1 million in the entire week. It certainly can. The way it's running right now, it will. Okay, but I don't think that'll happen. But I think after 2 weeks, I think that'll be it. It'll be the biggest film of all time. In the time between now and then, hopefully something happens with the Numbers.com website. Either Disney comes out and says that's the real figure, if you like, if it's basically is the biggest film ever. Maybe James Cameron will come out and make an announcement, or the Numbers.com will realize that they've got this kind of discrepancy going on, and maybe hunt around and see what's going on. Are they missing out some extra figures somewhere? Like, who's made the mistake here? So Box Office Mojo is a very popular site that a lot of third parties will use, but it's just a web page that records numbers from distributors, and exact same as the Numbers.com. So I'm not saying the Numbers.com's number is figure is correct and Box Office Mojo is wrong. I don't know which one, but there are two numbers out there. They're both credible websites, and at least one of them has it wrong. So either Endgame is now the biggest film ever, and maybe some people start noticing that, or we've only got $7.1 million to go, and that's going to happen. Okay, I just don't really see a scenario where it can't earn an additional $7.1 million since it just got $5 million internationally. So where could I be wrong here? Where could go wrong? Well, this $5 million, that's an estimated amount. So what will happen is about 24 hours time, Box Office Mojo will update their foreign figures, and in about 48 hours time, that's when the numbers.com will update their foreign figures. So the $5 million could be wrong. That could be a gross overestimate. That's the figure that Disney is saying right now. So Disney's saying we got about $5 million internationally this week. Both Box Office Mojo and the numbers.com are reporting that $5 million. And as I said, normally what happens is in about 24 hours time, Box Office Mojo will change that figure. So it won't have a whole pile of zeros at the end. It'll have a real number there. And it may be a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger. And about 24 hours after that, that's when the numbers.com updates it. And at this stage, they then basically do nothing until the next Sunday. So they're only really updating their figures once with an estimate on Sunday and then once more during the week at this stage. But that's, I guess, what could say that this isn't going to happen is if this estimate from Disney is grossly wrong. But even if it is, I still think it could make the $7.1 million just from the US domestic market. So I really don't see a scenario where, well, other than the film just stops showing, I suppose. If the theaters pull it for whatever reason, yeah, it can't earn more money. But barring that, and, films normally go on a long time. I mean, Captain Marvel is still showing officially. It's not earning much, but Captain Marvel was released over a month over Endgame, I believe. So Endgame's just been re-released, so it's certainly got more than a month to go. It's got several months to go earning money. I don't think it's going to stop earning money. It's going to beat Avatar. Okay, Endgame will be the biggest film ever, if it isn't the biggest film ever right now. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.